Emily,
Sydney,
Morgan,
Wendy,
Courtney,
and we're Cohort 4.
It's November 6th. We're in the library, and we're going to be talking about common problems that teachers have in their classroom and how to handle them according to the InTasc standards.
Hey guys, I have a student right now in my classroom. Even though we barely started the semester, I'm having a little bit of difficulty with him. He's not understanding the subject that good. He's a transfer student from Mexico, and I'm just having a very hard time for him to engage in what we're talking about. I mean, it's U.S. history, so he's not connecting with our culture from here because he's a transfer and from Mexico, so it's very hard for him to understand. What do you think we should do? I mean, what would we do to help him engage in the classroom setting?
I would say you communicate your expectations explicitly. I said that encourages students to want to spend more time creating challenges for themselves. And you can also involve students in like fundraising and things like that, and it makes them want to be involved, and it makes students acquire skills of communication and performance.
And it sounds good.
Thank you, Sydney.
I'm having the same problem as Wendy. There's a kid in my classroom, and he doesn't want to participate. He doesn't want to learn because he thinks he's not going to use this knowledge in the future, and he's not going to use it right now in his everyday life. I'm struggling to find ways to tell him you're going to use this every day in ways you don't even expect. It applies to your house, it applies to your community, and it applies to your future career and education. It's important that he needs to learn it right now, so in the future he can build upon this skill and really understand how to use it in everyday life.
I would say, for example, if you're working with small children, let's use a park. You have to compare the lesson to what they use. The park is what children like to play on. So if we're doing a lesson on recycling, we'll go clean up the park. That's something that's important to them, so they would know how important recycling is and how it compares to the lesson as well.
Yeah, I'm having the same problem in my class. I'm going over the curriculum that is assigned by the state, but I can't get my students involved, and it just seems like they're really just not interested, and their grades are reflecting that because they're not doing their homework or not taking class seriously because they feel like, why does it matter?
Well, I mean, you need to get them engaged in the lesson because they're not really they might understand it, but they don't really enjoy doing it. I'm teaching my younger students math, but they have to color in, the paper, so they have to get the correct answer to be able to know what color to color certain things. And a great quote by Carla Ritchie is, "If students don't find school engaging, empowering, and interesting, then they are not interested in performing."
Oh, okay.
I have another question. It's about my students actually understanding what I'm teaching. I'll teach a lesson and I'll ask questions and they'll give me the correct answer, but whenever I give assignments, they don't understand the concept. Like the whole time I'm teaching, they'll say they understand and they'll seem pretty confident in their answers, and sometimes the answer will be correct, but when it's time for them to apply what they learned, it's like they go completely blank.
It's probably a misunderstanding of what you're trying to teach. They think they understand what they're learning, but it's different from the content you're actually trying to get them to understand. A good way to prevent this and catch it before work is during the middle of your lesson, take an understanding, ask them to stand up, explain, take a quiz, not for a grade, but just to know if they're getting what you're trying to teach them. Another one is also after the lesson is over, have them work on a group project so they work together and they all kind of put their ideas in. So if one person doesn't understand, they can ask questions and ask the teacher who's right and if they're doing what they need to do for the assignment.
Okay, well, I will take that into consideration.
Well, I have an issue where I went and talked to the history professor and learned what they were learning about, and I selected a book for my English students to read that's kind of a historical fiction book, and I'm having them to write an essay about it, but when I read through the rough drafts, I realized none of them are talking about the historical aspect, they're just focusing on the fiction part, so I'm wondering how I can kind of integrate them into knowing that this is also about history as well as English.
I think a really good idea would be to get together with the history teacher and kind of do a group class where they get to learn about history, and afterwards you can go back and say, you need to write your essay over this, incorporating what the teacher just taught you in that lesson. So they really understand that they can apply two different subjects to the same thing, and they know that you can build one of your projects based off another without doing any extra work because it's information you've already learned in your other classes. It'll really help them because they feel like they don't have to do more work than necessary, and it's easy for them to understand what's going on because they have help in both classes. I've been having trouble with my student teacher in my classroom. She wants to do the lessons, she wants to plan them, but she won't work with me on it. And as a student teacher, I feel like we really need to work together and work with other teachers in the classroom. What do y'all advise to work with your teammates on your team?
Well, I feel like collaboration is important in any aspect of your life, in the classroom as well as in several different classrooms to connect them together. It's really important as a teacher to collaborate so that you can build on each other's lessons and ideas in order to make your students better understand how everything really connects in the real world and why it's even relevant. After all, the most valuable resource that teachers have is each other, and without collaboration, our growth is limited to our own perspectives. Okay, so I'm teaching in my science class, we're covering the concept of stars and galaxies, and I guess that was really always just a hard subject for me. So how would I better prepare myself to teach that to my class to make them understand? But I don't really feel adequately prepared myself. So how would I put that onto them to where they understood what I was talking about?
I think a very good way for you to engage your students in a subject about science is by talking to a professional about NASA, or going to a higher level science teacher or a professor from a university, and trying to ask different questions about how you can teach your students a better way, get them more engaged, and make them understand the subject better. So maybe you can understand this first and then come back to your students and let them know the fun facts about space and all the different things that are out there in the world.
I have a question. It seems as of lately that my students have hit a wall. They don't want to learn anymore. Not saying that they just don't want to learn, but they're not interested anymore. They don't understand why I give them certain assignments, and I've tried many different engaging activities. So I would like to know, what other ideas can I incorporate into learning?
Yeah, that's totally understandable. That happened to me last year, so this year I've come up with a more involving method. I have assigned a project that reversed roles to where the students became the teachers and the teachers became the students. And so I gave them a broad topic, and they just kind of picked something from that topic that really gave them ownership, and then they had to go out and they had to research it, figure out the material to present, and then that made them responsible for knowing the material, so that they could present the correct material to their classmates. And
was it more appealing to them when you did that?
Yeah, I think so, because they really thought that they owned it, and they were proud of themselves because they got up there and they presented the material, and it was really
refreshing to them, I'm guessing, And it's probably because they put in effort to do it themselves, and they wanted to do it because they picked it.
Does it matter if each teacher does it in their different subject? Can we all do that?
I think that it's something that we all can do, because it just really gives ownership, and it makes the students be in charge of what they're learning and what they're taking in, and it really makes them responsible for it, which makes it more fun for them.
I mean, I guess that really also helps them understand why teachers do certain things, so that they're not always getting mad oh, my teacher gave me a quiz over this. It really helps them understand.
Yeah, it shows them the pressure of being a teacher, and then they understand the role better.
So you were saying about all these different stuff that you're using, do you see a big change once y'all did this? Do you see a progress in their ways of teaching or their ways of understanding?
I feel like we do. I feel like the students definitely understand more, and they do better after we do this project.
lullaby. Oh, somewhere over the rainbow, bluebirds fly, and the dreams that you dream of, dreams really